so far from the ground, but I'm not looking down. Feel the warmth of the breeze rushing over me. Now it's soaring high, reach and touch the sky. We can
Here we go. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Hanging with Hilari. I'm being chased by a flying saucer over here, but I've got my peasants and groundlings, my lurkers and lovers. Thank you so much for watching. Come on and let's come hang. But first, give a roaring welcome to David Maldo, my co-host. We knew you had a second roar in you.
I'm here too.
You're absolutely here.
And I know we're both here.
Wednesday, we are back. The best day of the week. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching and supporting the show. I'm Hilari, and this is David. And those are the kids in the peanut gallery. So I'm really happy to be doing this. I never set out to do a YouTube streaming show, but then I thought that would just be selfish not to share all my fantastic friends with all that knowledge and take advantage of my new friend David and skills of being able to do these incredible sets and all this technology. So I'm really grateful. Whoop whoop. So for those of you just tuning in, we're here every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, with artists, writers, actors, photographers, creatives, showing that our careers are not linear, that they take all sorts of twists and turns. And we hope that this serves as inspiration for creative people out there who are working, who want to work more. So this show is for creative people who've built their own path. So hit that subscribe because we've got some great guests coming up. Next week, we've got Jamie Neal coming in from the UK, who is a creative movement artist. There's only 4 of them in the world, and he's one, and he's going to be on our show. On 4/28, we've got film producer Susan Diner, who also is going to do a little magic for us.
Ooh.
And then we have on May the 4th, Stephen Banks, who was the head writer from SpongeBob SquarePants. And he's got a couple books that are coming out that we're going to promote. But first, David, how's Florida doing this week?
I went outside.
You went outside and you got vaccinated too,
and I got vaccinated. Yeah. So I went outside for a walk because I'm like getting ready to come back into the real world. Oh, it's nice out there. There's trees and grass and sky. Like I'm coming out of this big coma.
You've been in your Zoom room in your working hard in tech, but yeah, getting outside is important. I know, but it's time to come out. It's cool out there. Well, I'm so excited for those of you who are here because this week's guest, we've got Dalen Musson on the show, who is a former Indie League pro wrestler, current animal rescue and shelter volunteer, once described as having a body like a superhero and a head like a car battery. This is Dalen Musson. Please give a warm round of applause for Dalen.
Yes, I'm glad the people from The Sims 2 were here to greet me. Lovely 3D modeling.
With all 10 of their pixels.
Dalen, I have to say, your bio is the best bio anyone has ever sent me.
Oh, thanks. I guess that that's proof positive that everyone else is working a little bit too hard.
I ask all my guests for a bio, and Dalen does what amuses him rather than what anybody else could possibly be interested in. So, which is a big reason I'm a huge fan. But for those people, I have to give a few official credits. That Dalen is actually a staff writer on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Also wrote on Iron Sky, The Coming Race, and he was a consultant writer on my feature, See What I'm Saying, who helped iron out quite a few things in the editing room for us. So
Iron Sky out things in the editing room. Huh?
Iron Sky.
Sorry. Let me not do that.
That's why he's the writer. And he's getting the big bucks.
Yeah. Well, that pitch didn't land.
No, speaking
it's
of
okay.
pitch, but that's what you do in your writer's room, right? You sit around and you pitch things and ideas and jokes to each other.
And nobody laughs, and then somebody else writes what they want instead of what I say.
Well, you know, I think in order to have this, let's go to the screening room to have this conversation, just because I think we'll get a little cozier there.
Okay. Nice and tight.
Nice and tight.
Squeeze
nice.
in.
We'll squeeze in the screening room.
We got our
Where
kitties
we're-
up there.
We got our kitties. Dalen is
Oh,
a
that's
huge
nice.
animal rescue
It's true.
advocate who does a
Mhm.
lot with animal rescue. So, Dalen, how long
Yeah.
have you been working as a staff writer on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Oh, well, I mean that specific job.
That's
I think we opened the room for that show in fall of 2018.
But then were you writing that entire time for 2 years, or how did
No,
that?
I mean they had to shoot the show, so we didn't. You know, we had done a large chunk of that before the show actually like went into physical production, and then we, as everybody, lost a good portion of a year. I don't know if you guys heard in 2020 there was this pandemic thing that happened.
Well, David's not been outside, and I've been just here with David. So,
By the way, probably the happier for it. Yeah. So no, I mean it you know, from inception to production can be quite a process. So yeah, I mean, gosh, even like Iron Sky, I think the script had been done for a year or so before we started production.
so now, because you've been writing your entire life, like you're one of the few people I know that doesn't. Oh, you're a writer and you also act, or you want to direct. That you are a writer.
Yeah, I can't. Oh boy, no directing, not. No, thank you. Also acting. Look at this. No, no, buddy. Keep that thing off. I'm very proud of some of the like minor background cameos I've made in stuff that I've worked on.
That's
But yeah. That part's fun, but it's like that shot has to be about 4 seconds and then get out of there.
Including you're in my Spartacus spoof. The I'm Hilari Scarl. You're right. You're next to
Oh
me.
yeah. There you go.
Shirtless and all your tattoo glory. So
Yeah. That's where I do my best work.
and people always ask about you. They're like, who's that guy?
Back 3/4 angle, stuff like that. You can't actually see me. It's for the best.
Now, did you always know you wanted to be a writer?
I didn't always know that being a writer was a viable career path, but I always knew it was something I liked to do.
When did you start taking it seriously?
Oh, I don't know, like 4 months ago.
You've done very well. Considering, I don't know if you know, but you have to go into production at some point
Right.
after you write. So.
I think, you know, what happened is I had always written, and I would write scripts and I would write TV stuff, and I just kind of didn't know what I was doing. And I was just always of the mind that if I enjoyed myself and just wrote stuff that I liked, something would just work out eventually. It's that old classic, like, if you write an amazing script and you leave it on a bus bench in Hollywood, somebody will pick it up. And I hate to make it sound like, oh, it's just the easiest thing in the world, but it really is just, I kept writing until I wrote something good enough that there was interest, that people that I showed it to liked it.
I've been
Go ahead.
reading your stuff for years. Like I've known you, what, 10, 14 years. And I remember reading some of your screenplays from back then. And even though I hated the story, I couldn't stop turning pages. Like all your scripts just read so easily.
No, thanks.
And I do know that one thing about the way you work is that sometimes your story might not be for everyone, but you've had craft like even way back then.
Oh, well, that's very flattering. Yes, I have heard that many times. That
Your
Dalen, this is
stories,
excellent, but no one will buy it, and I hate it. Yeah, so I would say, like, the long and the short of it is, I wrote something that started to gain some interest, and people started to pay attention to, and I got representation, and I was still working day jobs and stuff like that, and I had saved up enough money, and I thought to myself, look, I have a manager and an agent, and I have a script that a bunch of people have read, and I want to say, I did the math at one point, but I think in my first year after signing with my manager, I want to say first calendar year, I went on 250 general meetings. And
wow.
yeah, it's too many meetings.
250, that's
I would do like multiple ones a day sometimes. Like, it was just crazy. But I thought to myself, I said, okay, I can't do both things. I can't juggle both things. So I said to myself, I have enough saved up that I can live for 2 years. I got to quit my job, and I got to give it 100%. And if I can give it 100% for 2 years and nothing happens, then this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And I need to go and get a job at PwC, or I need to work in middle management at AT&T or something, which, as a side note, everyone can't believe I say this, I love stuff like that. I love having a short cubicle. Like, I love working in a big office. I love having that little gray pin board that you can like put stuff up on. Like, I love that stuff.
But now you've had some really interesting side hustles. Like, what were some of the things that you were doing to make money?
Oh God, I mean, let me see. I was a body piercer. I moved furniture. I did demolition. I worked as a project manager at a DVD testing facility. I tested video games. I'm trying to think of some of the other hilarious jobs that I've had over the years.
I want to hear more about the video games.
Yeah, you wrote the copy, the dialogue for the video game.
Yeah, I did a lot of like story and narrative design for a lot of video games.
That's awesome.
And that was like my background. Like, my first job out of high school, I was 17, and I worked at a video game publisher, and then in the quality assurance department, like the sort of classic like video game tester, and quickly got promoted. So I was like, I was the boss of like 6 people. I was 17 years old. It was the weirdest thing in the world. Yeah, no, it was so ridiculous. And it's like, look, I'm a bit of a complete maniac now, so I shouldn't be in charge of anything today. Never mind when I was 17. Yeah, they're like, here's this company credit card. Make sure everybody eats when you guys are working overtime. And I'm like, if by eat, do you mean go drink liquor? We used to go to like, there was a place down the street from the office that did Lobster Wednesdays, and like the whole testing staff would go down there, and it was bonkers.
But the storytelling in video games is like movies these days. I mean, that must have given you some storytelling,
I mean, experience. I'm gonna date myself. I've been working on video games since the PlayStation 1 and N64. So I go back in video games 20 5 years.
That's awesome.
I've seen the advancement. I mean, look, we could do an entire show. I taught a course at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena about narrative and storytelling in video games. Like, I could do this all day. I think video games are a very interesting medium, and there's a lot that can be done to tell a story without non-interactive cutscenes,
Yeah.
without just dialogue. And in fact, I think a lot of times video games are better at telling stories without those things that are not native to the medium. Games are by their nature an interactive medium.
Mm.
And
You
I think
identify with your character after you play it for 200 hours,
no, exactly.
right?
And there's
You would
a
know
lot
from
of
experience, David.
It's an emotional
Oh,
bond with the
no.
little character that you're moving around, and it's not just like watching a movie, it's like being in the movie. It's like being the lead character of the movie.
Absolutely. In a way, though, it's more than that. A movie is, by its definition, a linear narrative, right? A movie can only be as long as a movie. And in a movie, you can only see what they pointed the camera at. You can only hear the characters that are speaking. In a video game, you know, if it's done right, you have a lot more freedom.
You can
And
explore.
yeah, totally. There's storytelling and design, things like that. Again, there's a lot, but they're different. And I think you lose something if you just try and tell a story in a video game the same exact way that you do in a movie.
Mhm.
The same way that if you try to tell the story in a movie the exact same way it's in the book, it doesn't work exactly.
You got to be true to the
Medium.
format.
You have to be true to the medium, yeah. And it is, I strongly believe in taking the strengths of each medium and you know, building out a narrative that fits. And that goes for any adaptation from any medium to any other medium,
I
is
agree.
really
You're going
identifying
from
those
short to
strengths.
features.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, people say, "Oh, I'm doing a proof of concept as a short," and then expanding it as a feature. But it's a different beast because you've written for film and television, which is now becoming less unusual. But back in the day, it was you were in one lane or the other, right?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, 20 years ago, but it's the things have definitely shifted a ton. And especially with the you know, and I'm not an expert on film and television history by any stretch of the imagination, but it's like when you look at your choices on TV 20 years ago, you know, which were generally going to be, you know, episodic dramas or comedies versus that sort of premium serialized storytelling that you see in things like, you know, you could argue where it started, but it's like, what was the first big ones that people talked about as like Oz, The Wire, you know, maybe The
True.
Shield,
Oh my gosh, it
stuff
changed.
like that. Yeah, it just changed everything. It went from, you know, there's very little, you know, in narrative similarity between an episode of Hill Street Blues and an episode from season 3 of The Wire. They just
Love
came
it.
from and went to different places. Both are amazing, but both are amazing in much different, I think, amazing in different ways.
Now, one of your strengths that I have always admired about you, and I know that
is the clean and jerk.
there's that, which we'll talk about in a minute, but you're sort of my script doctor when I am sifting through problems. But
That's not
so
me.
it's not me, not
That was
yet,
me.
but
Sorry.
we've got a new segment on Hanging with Hilari called Ring a Writer, because you are my script doctor and you are so good at solving writer problems that we thought we'd give some other writers a chance. So
Oh, fantastic. Just dropping this surprise on me, no pressure.
So we've got a caller here. So David, I think we should go.
To Mars?
Yes, I think that our writers get to choose, our guests get to choose any set where they want to have conversations and talk to guests. So of course, Dalen chose Mars, and on the phone on Ring a Writer, we've got Julie O'Hara.
Hey, Julie.
Julie is an Atlanta-based screenwriter whose credits include the feature film The Pool Boys, starring Matthew Lillard, which released theatrically in 2011. And currently, she's got a couple of pilots generating heat and hopes to be in pre-production soon on her feature directorial debut. So say hi to Julie.
Congratulations, Julie. Maybe I should be asking you questions.
Yeah, sure. We can connect offline. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. I'm doing well. You actually work with somebody I've known for a bit. I've known Malcolm since back in the I don't know if you knew Malcolm back when Craig Mason started The Artful Writer.
I have known Malcolm for going on 25 years. So yeah, I've been
longer than I have then. Yeah. I knew. I guess it was like the balls out days, him and Tim.
And for those people who don't know, Malcolm is the showrunner and creator of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, among many, many other projects. And he and Dalen have been working together for a long time. So Julie, I'm so happy.
Well, this is hilarious. I'm glad we have a connection.
Yeah, totally. So, okay, I'm the inaugural call-in. Is that right?
That is correct.
Cool. Okay. So, all right. So I'm going to tell you kind of a story/character thing I've been chewing on a bit. Maybe you can help me solve this. For a comedy feature, it hinges on mistaken identity, and my protagonist is a con man, anti-hero kind of dude. He's charming and clever, and I'm trying to figure out a way for him to finagle his way into this fancy gala he doesn't belong in, and I want to do something fun and kind of Kaiser Soze-esque that we haven't seen like a million times before. And hopefully I can figure out like a skill, something that he uses for like this and for cons, but then he can also use this power for good. Like in the end, when our synthesis happens and he's the good guy again. So why did I maybe spitball that with you a little bit?
Well, I'm going to cheat. I'm a big fan of the pull from the headlines and tweak to fit. So I would bet if you looked up like famous heists, famous robberies, things like that, you would find that people have actually done the weirdest, most interesting things to get into places that they're not supposed to be. Like the Thomas Crown affair, when they, that I'm really pulling, dated references. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that art heist in the beginning was based on something that really happened. Stuff from The Italian Job is like kind of a pastiche of real robberies and things like that. So I don't wonder if, rather than just like pitching random ideas, like he could be a plumber, he could be a carpenter, he could have been the guy who built the house 17 years ago and sneaks in there, he could be, you knock the DJ out and like drag him behind a cupboard. If there isn't something that feels almost, what's the old saying is truth is often stranger than fiction. Like we could come up with something that's going to sound completely preposterous that isn't half as preposterous as something that people have actually done.
Like 2020.
Yeah, no, exactly. Imagine putting that in a script in 2018 and everyone's going to go, nobody would act like that. That's not real.
Exactly.
What do you mean? What do you mean that? Yeah, it's completely unbelievable in so many ways, without getting into any details that I think we could all agree. But I I wonder if you don't find the sort of analog of that where it isn't someone sneaking into a fancy gala, but if it's somebody who, you know, broke into a rich person's house, if it's someone who did this, if it's someone who, you know, got into the Louvre, I would
Yeah.
bet you there is a real story of someone who did something that's so insane you wouldn't believe it if it wasn't real. And you can then sort of tweak and massage and mold that to fit the story that you're trying to tell, in a way that makes sense for your character and doesn't feel convenient, is the other thing. Like, it's really
Right.
easy to literally, I mean, this is a bad pitch and this is not a real pitch. It's really easy to say, oh, well, this is the guy who built the mansion that they're having the gala in. And so he knows where the secret compartment is because he put it in there. But like, that seems, you know, that's a little bit much.
Right.
But I bet there's something where, you know, a guy pretended to be the architect and went and got the plans from the actual architecture firm because they were no longer public, you know, blah, 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 blah. I bet there's something like that. You
Yeah.
can do. So that's what
Yeah.
I would do is, I believe it's called stealing. I would steal it from somebody else.
Well, yeah, I think that's what we're supposed to do as writers, right? I forget which of the infamous oldie but goodies said something like that, right?
I think they
Yeah.
said good artists borrow, great artists steal.
Yeah,
Yes.
that sounds like, yeah,
That's it. Yeah.
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 Oh well, that's a great idea. Thank you. And I'm a good Googler, so I will.
Yeah, talent
definitely
talent borrows, genius steals is the saying.
Thank you.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yes.
well done. So again, Julie, I'm sorry if this is a little tiny bit of a cop out, but I feel like there is a better answer in there than I could ever come up with right now.
There's a million Florida man stories out there waiting to be used in Hollywood.
Yes, he broke into the gala
yeah.
by doing meth and stealing a car.
There's got to be an alligator in there too somewhere.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
It was flushed down a
yeah.
toilet as a baby.
My pilots.
Exactly. See, I love the fact, and this is something that new writers don't understand. They write in a vacuum and then do one draft, maybe two drafts, and then say it's ready and send it out. And they don't realize that professional, right? Or at least I do, you know, run it by friends, colleagues to have feedback and talk writers. Do you guys do that? Like have your material read by trusted colleagues before you send it out?
I
you talking
typically
to
do,
Julie?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially if I'm not sure that I've got the story nailed down, or sometimes if I'm too close to it and don't have enough distance before I send it to my reps or something. And so I've got some people that I trust who will tell me it's not ready. You need to give it another pass, or because nothing's ever finished, obviously, but there's levels of ready that are ready to send to different people, and so sometimes you need other eyeballs for that.
Dalen, looks like you're doing maintenance on the back of Julie's phone on Mars. You
Sorry
were
about that.
polishing your water bottle, but
No, I was getting I was just cleaning off the screw tops part.
no, it
the-
looked very technical
Right.
on Mars that you were doing some maintenance control.
Yeah.
It was very high tech.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
very
fixing
impressed.
the helicopter part of the Perseverance lander.
That's so perfect. So Julie, do you feel like you've got some direction to go with your script?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. That was a great idea, and I am going to hop on and do that after this show.
Julie, thank you so much for calling in. It's so good to talk to you. And thanks for hanging with Hilari. We appreciate you being on here.
Thanks for having me. Talk to you later.
Bye, Julie. Good thing that wasn't like a math question. We would have been here all day.
Well, we're not done yet because we've got a writing duo who's calling in next. Here they are.
That was impeccable
How
timing.
did you do that? Seriously,
I-
how did you do that? That was amazing.
I'm a director. I direct shit. All right. So, David, can you
Yes.
please take us to the other location in Mars, please?
And as I'm doing, I just want to say hi to Chris in the chat. We have Chris in the chat saying
Hey,
hi
it's
to
Chris
us.
from Mullis, who our old friend says, nice
Oh,
to see
yeah.
you. Your face.
Ah.
We were all in a writing group together.
That
once.
is a name I have not heard in a long time.
Oh, good to see you, Chris. Yeah, we need to all get together and have another writers group. All right. So up next, and our next Mars rover location, we've got David Nathan Schwartz and Michael McDonough, who are writing partners who have written TV movies. Their latest was the thriller Dangerous Medicine that was on Lifetime. So say hello to David and Michael.
What's up, y'all?
Hey,
I
Hey,
do like,
dude, how are
I do
you?
like a Lifetime movie. I'm good, thank you.
So we're gonna have you guys say who is who before you speak, because we've got a dual rover landline happening, or a cell phone happening here.
Okay, this is David, the good-looking one.
Excellent.
So David and Michael, do you have a question for Dalen?
Michael? Oh, geez.
I know he said he wrote it down. They spent a lot of time and thought into their
Oh,
question, Dalen.
fantastic. Oh boy, I can't wait.
They were pitching potential questions, and it's a writing duo, so you know that went back and forth for a while.
Ugh, twice the brain power. This is not fair.
All right, so I think Michael was the one who was in charge of the question. That's what I'm getting. So, Michael, what is your question for Dalen?
Hi, Dan. This is Michael asking.
Hello.
Our question is to write subtext or not to write subtext. For example, we recently wrote a screenplay, a suspense thriller for the Lifetime movie channel, and we were told by the director to use subtext liberally so that the producers and executives knew exactly what they were getting and didn't have time for discovery. But in our spec scripts, we're loath to do so because, well, we don't want to tell the actors and directors what to do. We also worry that readers might not get it if we don't. Any thoughts on that?
Oh man, this is a loaded question that is going to get a lot of people into a lot of trouble. My personal take is to sprinkle liberally through action description and things like that, and then maybe not so much in the dialogue, because in my experience, you want to be clear what you are trying to communicate, and making something too obtuse or obscure for the reader can be detrimental.
Right.
The dialogue, we can all fall into the trap of the on the nose dialogue. We've all seen the scene in a movie, and a lot of us have written the scene where you go, so you mean to tell me? And then you just explain whatever needs to happen or whatever we're doing. And sometimes that's necessary. And sometimes you can be a little bit more nuanced and whatever. But as far as like making it clear to everybody exactly what you're trying to accomplish, I don't see the downside in that, at the beginning of the process. Especially when you're writing for a reader, as opposed to for an audience, I tend to want to err on the side of clarity. Like going so far as, and I don't necessarily recommend this, but I will literally write a note to the reader in a script sometimes, like in brackets and italics, note, the intention here is this. Or note, there is a ghost in the room. The characters do not see it, but it maneuvers around and is listening to their conversation. So they at least know, oh, okay, that's cool. And then 5 scenes from now, you can say, note, this was the ghost who was listening to their conversation. Like, you don't have to be clever about it. It's clever that it's happening, So that would be, I would balance the sort of art and efficiency. I listen, as creative people, we are loath to not make things nuanced and beautiful and sort of, sing and rhythmic and stuff like that. But sometimes you just got to tell them what you're going to tell them.
Right.
I see.
But Dalen, how do you get around the big writing lesson I got hammered into my head is, how do we know this? Just like if it's like it's the weekly comedy show and you're writing that in your action, how does the audience, unless it says, close on a sign that says weekly comedy show?
That's the answer.
So
But,
yeah, so if there was a
comedy-
ghost, wouldn't you put
Comedy
close on-
Mondays.
Comedy Mondays, exactly.
You pretty much know it's a weekly comedy show if the sign says Comedy Mondays.
Right. You can't just tell the reader it's a weekly comedy show. It's got to be shown something.
Yeah.
Sure. And it's obviously it's very different if you're writing David and Michael, exactly what you guys are talking about. It's very different if you're writing a spec, which is you are writing it for readers, versus if you're writing for production. Here's what it is. There's a sign that says weekly comedy show, and props is going to make something that looks cool, or set design. I don't know who does that part. Sorry. Don't get mad at me.
That'd be, production. Yeah.
Someone talented
Somebody.
takes care of it.
Yeah. Somebody far more talented
Art
than me actually
department. Art
makes
department,
a
graphic.
thing. Yeah, but I mean, all those lessons are important right up until they get in the way, and then you just throw them out because it doesn't matter. Like, there's plenty of lessons like don't write anything you can't see on screen or whatever, but sometimes for the reader, you just need to know what's going on.
Right.
If you're writing a fight scene and you say, as the fight goes on, these two are out for blood and want to kill each other. Okay, you know what you're seeing. You don't need to write each movement and punch, for example. So, and nobody likes writing a fight scene better than me, boy. I am like, I'll spend 15 pages on that stuff. I got suplexes in there, like.
And that's why you write for Marvel.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome.
Does that answer your question, Michael and David?
Yeah. It's a matter of taste, I guess, and I don't know when we struggled with that the other day.
Yeah, I would err on the side of clarity. That would be, and again, I mean, what do I know? But I would err on the side of clarity always.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
David here, I agree with you, and I thank you. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Remind me to send you a check that'll bounce.
I don't think people are still writing checks anymore, but
I just got a checkbook, actually.
Did
Funny
you?
say that? Yeah, I was like, I needed a check for something. Like I had to send something to the IRS, and that was the only way they would take payment.
damn those are the IRS.
I know. So David, I'll take it. Thank you. I'm glad that sounds
Yes,
like you
tips,
and I were
Venmo,
on the winning side of this
Bitcoin,
conversation.
PayPal, we will take it all. So David is the one with the white hat and Michael's the one with the gray hat. So it's good that the writing team has got hats synchronized. That's
Well, we have to because we're bald. We're two bald guys.
Yeah, I get it.
well,
I
handsome
don't know
gents
about
all,
that.
handsome and talented. Well, thank you so much for calling in. Thanks for Ring a Writer on Mars. So now you can say you actually had a writing consult from Mars. Is that the rover that we've got going
Yeah,
there?
that's what's it
So
called?
we've got the rover.
Perseverance.
Perseverance. Oh, that's right. Perseverance.
And we have Lily in the chat.
We've our friend Lily Stinson.
Hey, look at you.
Hey.
Look at
Who's
that. That's
yes.
fun.
So yeah, we were all part of one big writers group. Chris and Lily, Dalen,
That's awesome.
me. There was
It's been
like
some time.
it was the best writing group ever. All right. Thank you so much. I think they hung up, but thank you, David and Michael, for Ring a Writer. We appreciate you.
Thanks for not blindsiding me too bad and
listen to it.
Yeah.
Good
I know we
questions.
need to have a reunion. All right. So now that we've answered everyone's question, David's second magical place, we gave him 2 because he actually was doing some work on the show, which I greatly appreciate, answering writers' questions. So let's go to Dalen's magical place, which is ice camping in Antarctica. And David and the reindeer. I don't know what kind of sound effects I was expecting when we switched over.
Well, there's no the South Pole reindeer don't make any noise because they're pretend.
Yes.
They don't exist.
They're
They're running
anti-reindeers.
the anti-reindeers. Yes, which we had the reindeer discussion during the pre-show. I did not know that they were only on 1 pole and not 2.
Yeah, a lot of people when I went to the South Pole, they were like, "Did you see polar bears?" And I was like, "Wrong pole."
Well, your Dan Thurman was our other guest who wanted to go to Antarctica because he said he'd perform on every continent except Antarctica. So he performed for a bunch of penguins on an iceberg, but I like your camping scenario here. So, all right. Thank you for answering those questions. Like I said, you're sort of you're my script doctor. You're the go-to who can solve that.
I mean, I'm just glad I got out of that segment unscathed.
You did. Well, they were bouncing around a lot of questions, and I think if you can clarify your question, I think that's half the battle.
Yeah, no subtext in the questions. Just ask it.
No, that rambling. Like, does that happen in the writer's room where people are throwing around something and someone has a thread of something, but it's not quite there, and somebody else kind of picks up that subtext, but it's probably better if you go like, he's in jail or he's dealing in elephants and they've got something clear. But if somebody starts to ramble and they're trying to work it out, do people wait until they have a fully formed pitch first? Or like I'm doing, sort of ramble until you hit upon your point?
I think both. I mean, you always want to encourage and prop up the people that you're working with, because you want to get everybody's ideas and you want them to find their point, and you want their ideas to spark other ideas, because it is supposed to be collaborative and you want to use everyone's strengths and sort of competencies. And everybody has a different speed of certain things, and so you never know what you might get out of somebody if you just kind of let them go for a minute. And if they are driving off a cliff, maybe you save them, but if not, you just kind of let it go and see what you can get out of it, because you never know where the good idea is coming from. So
I like what you said the other day. It was pretty enlightening when you said everyone has different strengths in the writer's room and they're there for a reason. Can you talk about that? Because that was super interesting to hear.
What did I say exactly?
You were like, well, this guy's really good at dialogue, or this person's really good at action sequences. You don't have to be good at everything.
Oh yeah. So there's a concept like in business school that is like, you use someone's core competencies, right? You don't need everybody on a team to be 100% well-rounded. You don't need everybody to be an A+ in every section. It's like,
Right.
In baseball, they have a term, it's like a 5-tool player. And the tools are like, you're fast, you can hit for power, you can hit for contact, you have good fielding, and then there's like one other thing that I can't remember. And if you're like really good at 3 of those and you're not so great at 2, as long as you got someone else that can pick up those 2 from you, like not every pitcher can throw 103 miles an hour. You might have to be able to have some like weird junk that breaks funny. And you need all of those guys. So I think, in a room, when you have people that are good at all of the things, it doesn't matter who it is. If you have someone that can cut straight through and figure out what's the cleanest through line of this plot, that's an incredibly valuable skill set. And that person doesn't necessarily also have to be the best at coming up with a cool action set piece or a quippy dialogue line. And the person who is really good at a quippy dialogue line might not necessarily be the best at cutting through and finding the narrative through lines. But when you put everyone together, then it works really well. And especially when you have somebody who's sort of steering the ship that can use everybody's strengths and values them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, then I mean, that's where the magic happens. That's where the alchemy happens. And yeah, so I think, I mean, everyone is going to be good at something. And, you know, you can manage a whole career off of being good at something. So,
Well, I know that they bring in writers for very specific things, like for comedy rooms. There are
Sure.
people who are excellent at punching up scripts where they can just turn out joke after joke and they'll insert it there. And now they're doing sensitivity passes. So if you have, you know, someone who's deaf or disabled or Asian or LGBTQ, they'll bring in somebody to make sure it's been culturally sensitive and do a pass that way. Have you been hearing more about that? Because
yeah, rightly so. And I mean, I know about it, you know, from the outside, obviously. And there's a tremendous amount of value to that as far as authenticity goes and sensitivity as well, because there is, you know, we can strive, whoever we are, to understand and empathize with and appreciate the sense of otherness, but any of us can only be ourselves.
right.
And so I think there is a tremendous amount of value in having other voices and authentic experiences reflected in media, you know, and especially like visual media where people are, you know, you got kids growing up and seeing a lot more and something that maybe reflects themselves, whoever they are, on streaming, you know, call it TV, but streaming, and in the movies. I can't imagine how important that must be.
Oh, it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
I feel
So
like I'm part of these discussions almost every day of having more diversity and authenticity from the beginning, to have
yeah,
projects that reflect so many more experiences and backgrounds that are really important, that are being heard and now being sought out. So that's something I think is good as we start to see more of these stories and more of these writers and filmmakers telling their stories and stories you've never seen or heard before.
absolutely. And that, I think, is the really important part, is that it's stories that we haven't seen before. So by their nature, they are going to be fresh and engaging. And it also is good, I think, for culture and society writ large, of being exposed to otherness and other people and other cultures and other experiences. And it makes everybody a little more sort of aware and a little more sensitive. And that is really, really important, so that it isn't just the only thing you know is the 5 people you grew up with and the 25 people in your little town and the 100 people you went to high school with or whatever. It's important to be exposed, I think, to other things.
I agree. As a human being, and as somebody
100%.
once said, you know, and it's the same thing with traveling, that I had a quote for a while hanging in my room that said, not traveling is like living in the Library of Congress and not taking out a single book. So I feel that way. Same thing about what you watch and the algorithms of Netflix and Amazon. They want, their whole goal is to keep you engaged and show you similar content. So I always tell people, go ahead and flip around, see something you normally wouldn't see, dig a little deeper to find a genre or a culture or a topic that's different.
I think
So,
that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that.
there is,
Diversity
but I'm
makes
not going to
everything
say it
better.
all.
I mean, our
Dalen,
superheroes are diverse now, right? I love the fact that the Marvel
Yeah.
superhero, and it's not just, oh, they have one minority to make it. No, they're truly and really diverse. And when I was a kid, they weren't. All the superheroes were dudes.
And I
You know?
think, I mean, there was, I think, a perception that that was who was consuming that media. So let's make it for our audience, as
Right.
opposed to, if you make it for a broader audience will show up.
like
And
Black Panther, like Wonder Woman.
I mean, like all of it. And,
Yeah.
you know, I certainly am not qualified to speak on behalf of other creators or what other people want to see or anything like that. But from my own perspective, I see what I see is a tremendous value in these other stories. But what I also like is that it isn't perfunctory,
Yes.
Mhm.
and it is foundational and fundamental to the characters
Mhm.
Yes.
and to the stories,
Yes.
who these characters are and what their experiences are.
It's not an afterthought.
It is not. It isn't just like, a classic example is, and again, I don't know the full story, but like the classic example is in Alien, the first one, they just made Ripley a woman. And
Mhm.
so it wasn't written as a quote unquote female character.
Right.
And so she ends up having what a lot of people say are like traditional quote unquote male traits in a sort of, a horror movie role, blah, 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 blah. And that's cool for that. But what if it is written foundationally as a woman and the experience is slightly different? And what if you go on and you just extrapolate out from there? Like, it isn't just, let's go at the very end of the process, let's go in and just paint it over with a brush of deaf and hard of hearing people, of somebody from Korea, of whatever. Like,
Right.
instead of it
Coming
just being
from
that
their
superficial, let's build it up naturally and organically from the ground up with that experience in mind, and let's make that a part of it. Like, again, I'm not qualified to speak on anybody else's behalf, but I know in my own experience of reading the difference between the Peter Parker Spider-Man books and the Miles Morales Spider-Man books. Miles Morales is a fundamentally different character than
Yeah.
Peter Parker. So his adventures as his own Spider-Man are fundamentally different.
Mhm.
And, I'm not a mixed kid from wherever. Is he from Brooklyn? I can't remember. But I don't know. I can't speak to the authenticity, but I can speak to that from a storytelling standpoint. Those two characters feel fundamentally different in a good way.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very interesting. It doesn't just feel like mixed race Peter Parker.
Right.
Like, it doesn't feel like a superficial change they made later.
Right.
And that to me is, I think, very powerful and very important.
Same with Captain
again,
Marvel. They didn't just make Captain Marvel a girl at the end of the story. They wrote Captain Marvel as a woman, and it
Right.
makes it it's part of why it's such an amazing movie.
All right, we are coming up on the question portion, but before we leave this beautiful scene, now this is, you actually were here, right? You went ice
Yeah,
skating?
no, that's literally a tent I was sleeping in.
What inspired you to go ice camping?
There's only like
Oh no.
two. What happened? Did I break something?
I froze for a second and I got scared, but we're back.
We're
There's
still
only
here.
like, there was only I realized this like a year and a half ago. It's like there's like 2 places left that I wanted to go and see. I've traveled a fair amount, I guess, and one of them was the South Pole. And I just got kind of a wild hair, and I started researching. And yeah, I talked to my partner at the time and was like, "Hey, you want to try and make this happen?" So timing was right, and we just happened to get in. We were like the last 2 people to be able to book the trip,
Incredible.
because there's a very, very finite number of people that are allowed. Like there was only like 11 people on our trip. Yeah, so
It's
I
amazing.
don't know. It's like the opportunity presented itself, and
You grabbed it.
one should not let those opportunities go. So
I agree. Well, all right, it's time to get you a drink. So,
Woo.
David, let's on head over to our honky tonk bar here.
Okay,
There we
interesting.
go.
I feel like I've been picked up in a place that looked similar to this once or
Actually, we're
twice.
behind the bar, so I think we're working here now, Dalen. This is our
I
new
know,
job.
that's exactly what I was referring to. They're like, "Can I get a Bud Light and your phone number?"
And still works. Except I don't know if Bud Light is still the best pickup line. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see.
I mean, what do they got back there? That's a Stella. That's
There you go.
hold on, I gotta get out of the way.
Hey,
Anyway,
Chris, thanks for stopping in here. He's got to go feed the family.
Goodbye.
Good to see you.
Enjoy.
And Lily's son Felix loved Mars, by the way. So David, you
Oh,
got
good.
a
Nice.
little kid's thumbs up on that.
Isn't that all? By the way, isn't that all any of us can ask for?
Because you know they don't bullshit. You can't have a 4-year-old be like, well, let me try
Let
to
me be
polite
nice. Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
answer."
Let me be polite.
But
They're like,
nope,
get this out of here. What is this food? I
this
hate it.
smells and
Yeah.
you're terrible. That's pretty much it. So I'm trying to think. We've got a couple of things left here to talk about. Was that
We
talk
can be
about your
fast.
what?
We can be fast. I'm
We can
fine.
be, we're not on
Yeah.
a huge, we're not. Tell me about your wrestling background. You
Oh,
wanted to
God.
be, I know you wrestled some.
Sure did.
Were you ever a professional wrestler?
Yeah, I mean, professional wrestling is the style that people would be familiar with, that like the WWE or AEW does.
Yeah.
You know, that's to differentiate amateur wrestling, which is freestyle and Greco-Roman that they do in college and the Olympics.
That stuff's
So-
fake, though.
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like when I was a little kid and people would say, "What do you want to do for a living?" I said, I wanted to be a pro wrestler. And then oh boy, I haven't talked about this in quite some time. So when I was in high school, I linked up with some buddies that were also like wrestling fans, you know, and of course we were the coolest people in high school, and we had all kinds of other friends, and everyone wanted to be like us. And we we started doing like backyard wrestling shows, and would like all the neighbors and some of our friends had come over, and like we built like ropes in my side yard and would put on matches and tape
Now, what
them
city
all.
was this? Set me up here. What city are we talking?
This was in beautiful downtown Valencia.
Valencia. Okay.
Yeah, where Magic
California.
Mountain is. Yeah,
All
in
right.
California. And like we ended up on the like best of backyard wrestling VHS tape collection. It was silly.
Is that a thing for real?
I've seen some
no,
of
no.
those. I've probably seen
Oh yeah.
that.
Uh-huh.
I used to look for those on the
The
internet.
best
They're
of
hilarious.
The best
Yeah.
of backyard wrestling.
Best of Backyard Wrestling Volume 1 and 2 heavily features our
'Cause they-
squad of lunatics.
Yeah, no safety. All the stuff you guys professionally do to keep it safe, none of that. You're jumping off of roofs onto tables on fire.
Mhm. Yeah, no, all that.
Have any of these skills been transferable in the rest of your semi-responsible life, Dalen?
Hilariously, yes.
In what way?
I mean the backyard wrestling stuff, not specifically, but just like wrestling in general. Wrestling is physical storytelling. Like this is real. Like pro wrestling is physical storytelling. And you are setting up at its sort of core is a very simple good versus bad
Mm.
fight
Well,
between
Glow taught me that.
two people. Exactly.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and when you watch, like, WrestleMania 37, 38 just happened this past weekend, and they had some phenomenal matches with just beautiful storytelling built into them. And they are telling that story in physical actions and things like something as simple as the good guy is following the rules and breaking the hold when he's supposed to, and the bad guy's cheating and thumbing him in the eye and choking when he's not supposed to, and things like that. And it makes the audience like get riled up and hate them and want the good guy to come back and overcome these odds.
And the
That's
ump is
all.
like the narrator, right? That isn't he called the ump or the
ref.
Referee.
The ref,
The
that's
There's,
it.
there's
I
commentators sit on
told
the
you,
side.
do not pick me for your sports trivia team at all.
It's good to know your strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
Um,
I can host a live stream show, but don't put me in your sports trivia.
Yeah, but so wrestling is storytelling fundamentally, and it's just interactive storytelling with an audience. And so, yeah, weirdly, some of those fundamentals I have taken with me, up through today.
We never asked for writing. I don't know what I'm always curious on writers' process, other writers. Do you have a set time you write every day? Now, obviously, when you're working in a room that they call the hours, but when you're on your own, do you write it in the morning? Do you set a certain number of hours per day? What's your process?
I'm generally a morning person. I get up and just grind as much as I can and run that tank down until it's, time to go do something else. And then I'll usually come back. It depends on the project and it depends on a deadline and everything. But in an ideal world, if I was just working on my own script and I didn't have outside pressure, I'd get a couple hours in the first part of the day before I ran around and did anything else. And then usually come back to the project sort of second half, late afternoon-ish for a couple more hours, just so I have a fresh look at it. And I can work on, like two things at the same time if they're in different phases of writing. Like if I'm writing original pages on one thing, I can rewrite something else. Because I feel like they use kind of different parts of the brain, for lack of a better term. But it's really hard for me to write fresh pages on two things simultaneously.
You can't break story on two.
It's just difficult. I mean, there's plenty of people that can do it, but I just think I've had too many closed head injuries, like too many wrestling related.
Too many backyard wrestling.
Yeah, no, it's true. I'm getting up in the high single digits, so my brain just doesn't work as well as it used to.
Whose does? Lastly, I wanted you to talk a little bit about your animal rescue, because you do such good work and you promote so many animals in need of rescue. And for those people who don't know, Dalen he writes poems to try to get animals adopted. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I volunteer with Los Angeles Animal Services, which runs the 6 LA City shelters. And then there's a number of other rescues sort of in the greater Los Angeles area that I work with. As far as
there's
like what's happening?
There's kittens on the bar.
Yeah, like look at these little guys. And at the shelter, you know, we do stuff like something as simple as just taking dogs out for a walk, or you know, running like play groups with the dogs so that they can have dog interactions with each other. We identify dogs that might be appropriate to be rescued. We help people. We like try and match people that come in with a dog that might be right for them, depending on what they're looking for and our experiences with the dogs, things like that. I mostly work with the larger dog population. Obviously, we do cats and rabbits and small dogs and everything else as well, but I tend to see that large dogs maybe need the most help often. Yeah, so I do a ton of that. I foster when I find dogs that are kind of appropriate for my lifestyle, which I think a lot of people miss out on as a potential. Like, if they, you know, you run into a lot of people who travel and they say, look, I travel for work, you know, once a month, so I can't have a dog. And one of the things we say to them is, you can always foster. You're basically just renting a dog for a couple weeks. And it's good
Right.
for the dog because it gets them out of the shelter. And it's good for you because you have a dog. But also, you get a whole different set of eyeballs on those animals, because it's your friends and somebody at Starbucks and a person
Right.
down the street and someone you go to the park. Like, half of the dogs I've ever fostered ended up getting adopted because I brought them to a softball game. I was walking them down the street
Oh,
with a
that's so
collar that said
great.
adopt me.
Oh,
I mean, one dog, I was literally, this is not an exaggeration, I was driving and I had the dog with me and he had his adopt me collar, and someone waved me over on the street
what?
and was like, let me get your phone number so I can come meet this dog. And it's just, you know, that person may or may not have ever gone to a shelter, but they saw that dog out in the world and then had that experience. Or just walking by a friend of mine on the street and saying, oh, hey, do you know anybody who wants a dog? And he's like, oh, I think Bill was looking for a dog recently, and like called the dude on the phone in front of me. And next thing you know, that dog gets adopted. And this is like a 10-year-old pit bull.
I need one of those shirts. I need a little like adopt me. So I think that's a good strategy.
Yeah, you never know. You never know where you're going to end up. Yeah.
Hey, I don't know. I saw this girl on the street.
And the cool thing I think about, you know, rescue work and working at the shelters and stuff is there's so many ways you can help. Like, there's plenty of people that are like, look, I'm not really comfortable around the dogs, but I sure can do some laundry. And they'll just show up once a week and help us like do laundry so the dogs have clean blankets. Or someone, you know, one of our volunteers is like really good at not fundraising, but like blanket drives or newspaper drives or toy drives or something like that. And next thing you know, there's like these giant carts of Timothy for the rabbits coming in and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
And so all of that stuff is like shockingly helpful in, you know, in a world where it's like you have a perfect problem and you only have imperfect solutions. So we're just kind of trying our best.
No, but I love that you write poetry with the photo, short poems for dogs on your Instagram. And it's a way to get it out because it's entertaining, and hopefully people will forward it more than just a, hey, adopt me. So you're attaching some creativity to these pictures. It's clever and it's heartwarming, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, that was the idea. There's a lot of like negative support for like, if you don't adopt this dog tomorrow, he's gonna die. And that's one way to approach it that is going to tug on some set of heartstrings. But I went for a little bit of a lighter approach to it.
I like your approach.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's got to be there's different approaches for everybody. There's different approaches for everybody. So
I agree. Hey, David, I think we're coming to the end. So let's take us back to our talk show. And Dalen, thank you so much for being here and hanging.
Very welcome. Thanks.
I could talk to you all. Those Sims are cheering you on along with me. So thank you for those people who have hung with us. Please hit that subscribe. You could share this. This link will be good till the end of YouTube. So share away and please tune in. And thank you so much, Dalen, for
Nice to see you guys. You're very
being on the
welcome. Thanks
show.
for having me.
This is a lot
David,
of fun.
as always, thank you so much for being my incredible co-host and setting this all up. And we will see you next Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific time. So
You sure will.
we need DD. DD, my dragon. Let's go. And we're off. I am going to beat you on your spaceship, though, one day. Every day, every time.